Welcome back to our channel, dear friends. Let me tell you, my heart has been so incredibly heavy watching what is unfolding right now, and I just have to pour my thoughts out to you all. You know how it is when you see a young person carrying a burden that is just entirely too big for their shoulders? Well, that is exactly what we are witnessing with poor Rocco right now. The boy is absolutely haunted by the crimes he has committed, and it is eating him alive from the inside out. It is not just a passing phase or a momentary regret. It is a deep, dark obsession that is taking over his every waking moment. I watch him on screen, and I could just feel the nervous anxiety radiating off him like a tea kettle about to boil over on the stove. He is trapped in his own mind, replaying his terrible mistakes, and Lord knows that kind of guilt is a heavy, heavy cross for anyone to bear. You can practically see the dark shadows under Rocco's eyes and the restless, nervous energy in his hands every time he enters a room. He is a young man who has completely lost his way, and instead of finding a clear path to redemption or seeking forgiveness, he is sinking deeper and deeper into this terrible obsession with his own wrongdoings. It breaks my heart, because we all know that when a person focuses so much on their sins, they start to believe they are nothing more than the worst thing they have ever done. Rocco is practically building a cold, dark prison for himself right in his own mind. He is terrified of being found out, yet almost equally terrified of having to live with this massive secret for the rest of his life. It is a classic case of the chickens coming home to roost, but instead of facing the music like a man, he is spiraling out of control. But here is where the story takes a turn that had me completely captivated and sitting on the very edge of my seat. Enter Britt. Now, we all know Britt has a heart that beats so fiercely for the people she truly cares about, and she has taken it upon herself to be Rocco's absolute shield against the world. It is always a beautiful thing to see a woman step up to protect someone in need, but honey, Britt is taking this to a whole new, frightening level. She is developing her very own kind of obsession, an absolute, unwavering fixation on keeping Rocco safe from the harsh consequences of his actions. It is exactly like a fierce mama bear protecting her vulnerable cub, but she is willing to cross moral and legal lines that should probably be left well alone. I understand her maternal instinct, I really do, because when you love someone, you just want to fix their terrible messes. Britt is not just sitting on the sidelines, wringing her hands and crying tears of worry. She is actively plotting and planning, ready to make some very questionable and dangerous moves to cover up Rocco's massive mess. I watched her pacing the floor, her sharp mind working a mile a minute, and I thought to myself, oh, honey, you are walking on the thinnest of ice right now. She is so incredibly focused on saving Rocco that she is completely losing sight of the bigger picture and the danger she is inviting into her own life. It is a terrifying kind of blind devotion. She is willing to risk her own good reputation, her own physical safety, and her own peace of mind just to make absolute sure that Rocco does not have to pay the heavy price for what he has done. It is the kind of desperate love that can bring a strong person to their knees. When Britt finally realized that this messy situation was getting entirely too big for her to handle all by her lonesome, she did what any desperate, terrified woman in her position might do. She reached out for a strong lifeline, and that lifeline, as we all know, is none other than Jason. Now, you and I both know that Jason is the ultimate protector in this town. It is baked right into his very bones to help those in distress. When Britt came to him, practically begging for his help to manage these new, dangerous adjustments Rocco is making in his chaotic life, Jason simply could not turn a blind eye to her tears. I could clearly see the deep conflict in Jason, the momentary hesitation in his eyes, but also that unwavering, steadfast loyalty he has always held for Britt. It is a very complicated, delicate dance they do. Jason stepping into this muddy mess is honestly like pouring a gallon of gasoline straight onto a smoldering fire. He certainly has the unique skills and the street smarts to help Britt cover Rocco's tracks, but his direct involvement raises the stakes to a truly terrifying degree. I found myself talking right out loud to my television screen, telling Jason to just walk away, to let Rocco face his own personal demons for once. But Jason is a man who fixes broken things, especially for the women he holds dear in his heart. He and Britt are now tightly tied together in this dark web of secrets, desperately trying to manage Rocco's erratic behavior and keep the ugly truth hidden from the authorities. They are sneaking around in the shadows, making these quiet, desperate adjustments to the situation, trying their hardest to stay one step ahead of the law. And sure enough, just as I predicted, the trouble is already starting to brew and bubble over. The drastic actions Britt and Jason are taking to protect Rocco are creating a whole new set of massive, tangled complications. You simply cannot just sweep a terrible crime under the rug without leaving a huge noticeable lump, and people in town are already starting to trip right over it. The heavy tension between Britt and Jason is so thick you could cut it with a butter knife because they are both operating under immense crushing pressure. They are taking foolish risks that could easily cost them their freedom, and the daily stress of it all is really beginning to show on their faces. I watch them trying so hard to keep their stories straight, trying to act perfectly normal when their whole world is turned completely upside down, and it is just exhausting to witness. But the part of this whole tragic saga that truly shattered my heart into a million tiny pieces is how this terrible situation is affecting young Danny. Oh, bless his sweetheart. Danny is watching all of this strange behavior unfold from the sidelines, and that boy is certainly not a fool. He clearly sees his father, Jason, spending all this precious time and endless energy on Rocco. He sees the hushed, whispered conversations in the corners, the sudden, unexplained departures in the middle of the night, and the intense, laser-like focus that Jason is giving to someone else's troubled child. For a young boy who has always deeply longed for more of his own father's time and attention, this is an incredibly bitter pill to swallow. I felt a huge lump form in my throat watching Danny's face fall every single time Jason rushed off to help Britt. That quiet, unspoken heartbreak building up inside Danny has slowly twisted and morphed into something much darker and far more volatile. It has turned into a deep, burning, consuming jealousy, and honestly, who could possibly blame the poor dear? He is watching his own flesh and blood risk his freedom and his very life for a young man who has committed terrible, unforgivable crimes. Danny is desperately trying to figure out why in the world Rocco is somehow worthy of Jason's ultimate protection and devotion, while he, the actual biological son, feels like nothing more than a forgotten afterthought. It is a terribly sad, heartbreaking family dynamic. I just wanted to reach through the screen, wrap Danny in a warm, comforting blanket, and tell him that his father truly loves him. But as we all know, actions speak so much louder than words. And then the heavy storm clouds finally broke. Danny exploded, and let me tell you, it was a dramatic moment of television that I will not soon forget. All that pent-up, bitter jealousy, all that deep hurt and profound confusion just came pouring right out of him in a massive, unstoppable tidal wave of raw emotion. He simply could not hold it inside his heart for a single second longer. The way he lashed out at his father, laying completely bare all his deep insecurities and his desperate, aching need for his father's unconditional love, was so incredibly raw and real that it brought genuine tears to my eyes. It was not just a childish tantrum. It was a loud, agonizing cry for help from a young man who feels entirely abandoned by the one person who is supposed to put him first. This massive explosion of jealousy from Danny proved just how incredibly toxic and destructive this whole secret situation has truly become. The dark secret of Rocco's crimes is slowly destroying this family from the inside out, completely poisoning the deep well of trust that should always exist between a loving father and his son. Danny's painful outburst was the harsh wake-up call that everyone desperately needed, but I fear it might have come entirely too late to fix the damage. It proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Rocco's dark obsession with his crimes and Britt and Jason's foolish obsession with protecting him from the law has gone entirely too far. They have foolishly created a monster of a situation that is now actively hurting the innocent bystanders they love the most. Now, you would naturally think that seeing the terrible emotional damage he is causing to a family might finally snap Rocco right out of his deep funk, but sadly, it has only made things so much worse for the boy. Seeing Danny's explosive, heartbreaking jealousy and the deep pain it caused Jason has only added more fuel to the raging fire of Rocco's personal guilt. His terrible obsession is taking an even darker, more dangerous turn right now. He finally realizes that his terrible crimes are not just his own personal burden to carry anymore. They have become a destructive wrecking ball swinging wildly through the lives of everyone who has tried to care for him. Instead of finding a moment of clarity, Rocco is spiraling even further down the dark, scary rabbit hole of his own mind. The stakes in this town have truly never been higher, my dear friends. We are looking directly at a dangerous powder keg, just waiting for a single tiny match to be struck. Britt is more frantic and desperate than ever to keep her makeshift, fragile family completely intact. Jason is deeply torn between his ingrained duty to protect and his profound love for his hurting son. And Danny is a live, sparking wire of pure resentment. And right at the very center of it all is poor Rocco, a young man completely drowning in a dark ocean of his own terrible making. The new, frantic adjustments he is trying to make to cope with his guilt are only causing more chaos and confusion for everyone involved. It feels exactly like we are hurtling at top speed toward a massive, unavoidable tragedy. This is exactly why we invest our precious time and our open hearts into these beautiful, tragic stories, isn't it? It is not just about the shocking crimes or the dramatic cover-ups. It is deeply about the messy human condition. It is about exploring just how far a person will willingly go for love, how bitter jealousy can slowly rot the soul, and how unconfessed guilt can become a terrifying prison with absolutely no doors. Watching Britt, Jason, Danny, and Rocco blindly navigate this completely impossible situation reminds me so much of the messy, complicated nature of our own real lives, just dialed up to 100 for our entertainment. We can see little pieces of ourselves, of our own families, and of our own personal struggles reflected right there on the screen.